Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Very excited to be joined by Hall of Fame coach Rick Macci, and we're going to be talking about Roland Garros, the French Open, where Alcaraz and Swiatek were victorious. But first of all, Rick, how are you doing? And I know it's raining a little bit in Florida, but apart from that, you look in good spirits.
Yeah, no, I'm doing great. Everything's good. Summer camp has started, 50, 60 kids a week. And we're not just changing strokes, but we're changing lives. So everything is great.
Amazing, great to hear, and fantastic to have you on. Shall we start off with Carlos Alcaraz? I know you're a massive fan of his, and you have, I guess, identified him from quite a young age, saying that he was going to be special, and he is a generational talent by the looks of it. Already 3 slams, and first player in the Open era to win his first 3 Grand Slams on 3 different surfaces, and the youngest male player to achieve it in tennis period. So there's been a lot of comments being bandied around about how good he is, and a lot of people saying that he is the best 21-year-old they've seen, and even better than Djokovic or Nadal or Federer at that specific age. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that comment and just generally how you thought his tournament went.
Yeah, first off, I got to back the truck up. I said this 3 years ago, a generational talent, something the tennis world has never seen. And barring injury, the sky's the limit for this guy. And the reason why he's a Broadway performer with a racket in his hand, he loves pressure. He gets nervous like anybody else, but I just saw something different. So the mental part, the way he handled things at a young age, was different. So that was number one. And then the genetic base, his turbo speed or his makeup speed was like the world has never seen. We've seen a lot of fast players, but he not only can get there quicker once he gets started, okay, he has the little motor skills in his toolbox to dip it, flip it, rip it, or chip it, so he's very different with his racket skills. So even on a bad day, he can run around like a squirrel and hang in there, but he's technically, nothing's really bad. There's not like a little bump that some people under pressure, you see that. So when I saw the movement and when I saw the mental part and the fact that technically there was nothing crazy and he had imagination, and he had that love for the game, that's why I went out there early on, got a lot of pushback that he was a combination of Nadal, Djokovic, Federer, and Agassi, all wrapped in one. That's what I saw. And, people, I get it. They don't like to anoint people that they're going to be whatever after they haven't done anything. But then he won a slam, and then he won another one. And then he hit a speed bump last year, as you know, at the end of the year. People start bringing out the knives and the daggers and criticizing. And I went on the record and said, listen, the road to greatness is not a straight line. There's going to be ups and downs. No one's going undefeated. But when he wins his next Grand Slam in 2024, which I said, people will talk about his poise and his versatility. And now everybody's talking about his poise and this versatility, So no, I love greatness, and we've just never seen anything like this. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to break the records, or that doesn't mean anything, because injuries, other people improve. But listen, he's there, and the fact that he has such completeness in his game, that's why he's been able to be so adaptive to every surface. But what I like more than anything, he's a role model for every coach and every kid that plays the game. I love the game. I have the passion. I'm having a lot of fun. Listen, you know how many drop shots that guy probably missed as a kid? And the coach said, keep doing it. Keep doing it. The 4 most important words, I believe in you, and he kept doing it, where now if you miss a drop shot as a kid, what are you doing? But if it goes over, hey, that's a great shot. So I think he's changed not only how the game is played for the pros, he's changed how the game is taught. That's the impact of this young man, and the best is definitely yet to come.
Yeah, 100%. I think he's not just him, but he plays a massive role in it. He's revolutionizing the way that tennis is being played right now, because you had your Djokovic and and Nadal, who were baseliners, and they were very much grind at in their peaks, and obviously they developed their game. But Alcaraz, as you said, is very creative. He's come to the net a lot as well. On clay, he'll second serve and volley, and that's not something that was regularly done on tour until recently. And of course, it happened before, 20, 30 years in the past, but hasn't happened for a while. And now we see other players, maybe like a Runa or even a Sinner starting to come to the net more, realizing that that's the way the game's going. You need to have, an array of tools to win and be at the very top of the game. So, and Alcaraz was almost, I wouldn't say gifted because he's clearly worked at it, but he has that special sauce where he can do everything. He does have that versatility, as you said, and that poise. And that definitely showed in some of the really real crunch moments, especially in those semi-finals and final matches where he wasn't maybe playing his best tennis, but in the big points, he really came out on top and showed what he's capable of and his mental strength more than anything. Were you surprised with how well he held up? Obviously, there were a lot of question marks over the arm, and he only played Madrid, which is very different in conditions before the tournament. Hadn't played Rome, hadn't played Monte Carlo, but then came into it and kind of worked his way into form, and then ultimately winning the trophy in really impressive fashion, playing back-to-back five setters. So, was that a little bit of a surprise for you at all?
A little bit, early on, everybody asked me my prediction. You might have also, initially I thought Joker would be in there, but before the tournament started, I picked Alcaraz and Iga, and barring injury and how he was going to feel, you know what I'm saying? And listen, it's so close with the guys at the top. It's a break here or there. It's those key points, the key moments, So I wasn't surprised. And, but what I like about him winning is, he hasn't been doing that great this year in a lot of people's eyes, and the end of last year. You know what I mean? And he's never won something like that on clay. So and you got to grind more. You got to, it's a dogfight. He didn't have an easy draw. You had to go center. Zverev has confidence against him. When you're 6'6" and serving 140 into the corner, you can beat anybody. So very impressive. But people got to understand one thing. He's 21 years old. Just turned 21, and there's just he's going to get better and better, and he'll make everybody else better and better. And I'm glad Sinner's right there, because right there you got the big two. Who will join him? Zverev made a cameo, to be determined. We'll see how this plays out, but I was a little surprised. But like you said, as the tournament got on and he built up momentum, I thought he would beat Sinner, and I thought he'd win in the finals. I knew it'd be a battle. But I just see when you got so many weapons, and you not just the mental and the footwork and the technical and the escape mechanism and the creativity, he has so many things at his disposal. But that started as a kid, and all the coaches listening, that you gotta expose him to everything. Make him a magician. Don't just hit the ball. And then hopefully that can come out and bubble up when you get into pro tennis.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. And I think on Alcaraz, I mean, it was very impressive to see the way that he battled through. I wanted to ask you actually about his serve, because there were some patches, and on clay it's obviously a lot harder at times to serve away out of trouble, but especially against Sinner in the semi-final, where there were long juice games and he managed to pull out some big first serves. I think he averaged 70% over the fortnight, which is very solid, and in fact very good, I would say. And he wasn't just being safety first on the first serve either, so he was being creative with it, and managed to win some, I think more 3 points than usual. I know you love your biomechanics. I'm not going to ask you specifically. I'm not expecting you to go into it in huge detail, but have you seen any specific tweaks or even tactical tweaks maybe on his serve at all?
Absolutely. I always thought tactically he was a smart server, but biomechanically, there's always been a flaw. Okay. He used to take everything straight up, and then he would go back. Okay. And he wasn't really getting the proper shoulder rotation okay, that he could have. Now, and that he probably did that ever since he was a kid. And there was a change. Now, that doesn't mean the change is going to solve the problem, but it definitely, his backswing is a little longer. And to me, it's made him freer and it's opened up the shoulder, okay, more naturally. That's what I saw. Now, and it did translate, like you said, into a better percentage. So I don't know if he worked with a biomechanist. I don't know if they said, hey, try this, try that. Because the serve is one thing that everybody can tweak. It's different than the ground strokes when you're changing a backswing or grip. That would be brutal. But I saw a change, and it's for the better. And the fact that he put in the hard yards to do that in a short period of time, because he wasn't doing that early on, And I think when people were not criticizing him, but saying there's a little bit of a flaw, I give a lot of credit to his team that they said, listen, we got to go back under the hood and let's play around with this and see if it feels more natural. And I think when anything maybe starts to feel more natural, you're freer, then confidence comes from there, and the proof's in the pudding. He delivered the goods under pressure. So I think it's a major change. The littlest things can make the biggest difference.
Yeah, 100%. And it seems like tennis is a sport of fine margins. I think it was Roger Federer the other day was talking about the fact that he'd only won 54% of points in his career. And yet, he's a 20-time Grand Slam champion. So I guess that says a lot about the big points. For Alcaraz, then, just to finish up on him, I mean, could you see, like, with Zverev in the final and also Sin in the semi-finals, in that final he was 2-1 down. Were you thinking, oh, okay, he could be in trouble here, or were you expecting him to get through the hole and also potentially even Zverev to maybe mentally fade a little bit when it suddenly got real that he's only one set away from winning the title?
I've learned long ago, okay, when you think it's over, it's probably not over. Maybe in junior tennis, you have a better feel of the temperature, but in pro tennis at this level, we've seen it all. So not really, and that's the magic of this guy, and you could see Zverev go down a little bit, and then, confidence is a fleeting thing. You believe a little more, you hit the ball a little earlier, you take more chances, maybe you're more aggressive, you're a little looser. People in the stands, they really can't recognize this, but you can kind of feel that momentum. So nothing surprises me. It wouldn't have surprised me if Sinner won the tournament or Zverev. I think it comes down to those key moments, but no, it didn't surprise me whatsoever until it's over. I think a lot of times when people look at a Grand Slam, like whoever wins the first set, most people think that person's going to win. That's a normal reaction. You don't win the first set and everybody's thinking, oh, I think they're going to lose still, unless you're playing Nadal maybe back in the day in clay. It's a normal reaction when you're ahead. You think the person's going to win or you're behind. But this guy has mental magic like no other, and he grew mentally by what he just did at the French, because he did it on the front end of not a lot of confidence, coming off an injury, being down. You know what I'm saying? So I think mentally he improved more than anything by how he went about and won this tournament.
100%. I wanted to ask you a little bit about his backhand defense, like defending in the backhand corner, because I feel like in the past against Sinner it was a little bit of an issue, and now he seems to have improved in that aspect, and obviously against Zverev as well in the ad court exchanges. Zverev has a fantastic two-handed backhand and can also boss those rallies, but Alcaraz again held up pretty well. Have you seen since the last couple of years to now, have there been big changes? And then as a coach, like, what do you think he's doing differently?
Well, technically, it's kind of the same. He has the same grips and the tape back, and he hits an open stance, which he should when he's wide. And he likes to drive the ball. He hits through the ball. But one thing they were doing, I saw that he did better. He was changing the pace a little bit more. He was going upstairs on the balcony now and then, or the penthouse or the third floor. He was doing that a little bit more. And he was using the left hand to grab the ball. I mean, to use the left hand to brush it a little more instead of just hitting that cross court bullet on the backhand. So I did see that, but technically it's the same stroke. It's definitely the same stroke. It's definitely a weapon because it's authoritative. And when he commits to it, I mean, he's hitting the ball, 100 miles an hour across court or down the line. So you can't really have it both ways. It's like Casper Ruud. His backhand, he hits it down the line more, which has helped him a lot. But he doesn't hit it as clean and flatten it out, maybe like a Sinner or an Alcaraz, has nothing to do with size or strength. It's the grip and the mechanics of the stroke. Not that he has a bad backhand. I'm just saying I like Alcaraz's backhand, and I like it. What I saw was it's more strategic. He was a little more versatile the way he used it, but biomechanically it was exactly the same.
Yeah, 100%. I think it was interesting to see him, as you say, change it up and add a bit of variety, not just trying to hit through his Vero, but occasionally add the backhand lob, or even he added a shorter slice cross court at times, or even tried to go down the line to get out of that exchange at court to try and get into the forehand where he's obviously going to dominate more.
And that says a lot about a player. Like I said, he has so many clubs, like a golfer. He uses a different club on a different shot on each, from every spot. So, and he has those tools and confidence to use it, but let's face it, at the end of the day, you got to control the situation. You can't let it control you. You got to dictate the points, because he does sometimes have so much artistry. It can get him in trouble, but you can't have it both ways. When he misses a drop shot, people said, oh, you probably shouldn't have tried it. But when he makes it, no one says that. Or he slices the ball. Or he likes to play around with a half volley or a drop volley. But that's why he makes them. He's an artist besides a punisher. It's something we really haven't seen. And that's why I said 3 years ago, he's a generational talent. And barring injury, he'll be one of the greatest players of all time.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's got so much in his arsenal that sometimes you do wonder whether it's just shot selection, which is the biggest issue more than anything. But he seems to be figuring out, which is fantastic to see. And when he's in full flow, I don't think there's many better sights on a tennis court. On, arguably his biggest rival at Roland Garros was on paper was Novak Djokovic, and I think some might say Sinner, but. What do you think of his level? Did you watch much of him? And obviously, it was unfortunate that he picked up the knee injury, but he had played back-to-back 5-setters as well. How did you see his level from your point of view? And was he shaping up to be a contender, or was it maybe just a matter of when he potentially physically break down, given the lack of match practice?
Yeah, I think, well, first off, when you do what you did last year and win 3 out of 4 slams, and he won the first set 6-1 against Alcaraz at Wimbledon. I mean, he could have won all 4. What do you do for an encore? And at the time you're 36, and you now have been anointed the GOAT. I mean, the numbers don't lie. So now you go into 2024 and you see these little issues, health issues, or, he's shaking on the sideline, and now he injured himself at Roland Garros. Before he got injured, he looked a level below what I'm used to seeing. What I meant by that, he didn't seem quite as confident. Okay. And like I said, it's a fleeting thing. It could, you could lose first round and win the tournament next week. These things are really tricky at the highest level in any sport, not just tennis. But he didn't seem as confident. Okay, I didn't notice that much with like movement or whatever, but when you're not as confident, it changes the whole landscape, point of view. When he came back and won that match in 5 against Senderlo, is that how you pronounce his name? His ball speed, his ball speed, like after he was down 3-4 in the third or whatever, increased like 12 miles an hour on the forehand. And that's the difference between a guy getting set and maybe the guy a little off balance, or the guy playing a little more defensive because you're dealing the cards and running the show. You know what I mean? So he just didn't seem quite as aggressive as in the past, but I think that's confidence. Now, the fact that he tore a meniscus, it depends exactly where and how bad. I had that happen to me playing basketball. Some people come back, not a problem. Football, all kinds of sports. This is tricky simply because if he thinks he's going to play on grass, and that's like the worst surface, and you got to remember, he's a skidder and he's a slider, and that's a whole nother animal. And when you're a fraction of a step slow or a little bit, a half a step slow, that's the difference. And you kind of can see that in Rafa a little bit. You throw in the age and not as much confident, and then coming off an injury. If you don't have your movement, okay, that's the difference between winning and losing at that level. Even if you have your movement, you're still vulnerable. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm sure he's doing a lot of thinking. I just hope he's healthy and he can give it his best shot, whenever he decides to play. He's great for the game. He's a great role model. And I know all the other players want him in there because they want to beat the best of all time.
Yeah, hopefully he recovers nicely from injury, and it looks like he may miss Wimbledon, which would be a big shame. But obviously, nothing confirmed yet. We know Rafa's missing Wimbledon, which I think was probably, going to be the case, and he'll concentrate on the Olympics. But I think the same will be. Well, I think the same will happen for Djokovic as well. Whether he plays Wimbledon or not, his sole focus is on the Olympics. The missing
Yeah.
piece, really, for him, given that he's broken all the other records pretty much and is the leader in pretty much every other aspect or record between the big three or in men's tennis, period.
And, another thing, when you get his age and what you've accomplished, and now you have the injury, now there's a lot of things that go through your head, the motivation, because you got to get up and grind. People have no idea. They have no idea what these guys do and how they train. You have no idea. The people just turn on their TV set and see him play. What behind the curtain? It's brutal, especially this guy. To be able to do what he's doing at age 37 and what he did last year, it's beyond epic. So who knows what the future holds? I just hope he can still play, because if he's 100%, he can beat anybody, anytime, anywhere.
100%. 100%. Hopefully he has a good end to the rest of the season, and then we'll see where we go from there. But I do wonder what might happen if he does win the Olympics, given he's won everything else. The motivation, it is probably the biggest factor to the wins that he's had, and his drive and the mental edge that he has over other players. So I do wonder if it might wane if he wins the Olympics. But either way, he's such a phenomenal player. Talking of mental edges and people who potentially might need to look at that, Alexander Zverev wanted to ask you about in the final. Do you think he has a little bit of a mental block, Rick? Or is it just Alcaraz is too good on the day? Of course, he was 2 sets to love up against Team 2020 at the US Open final. That was standard-wise not a particularly good final, level-wise, but there was drama. And similarly, I guess 2 sets to 1 up in the Roland Garros final, and then was it 6-2, 6-1 or 6-1, 6-2 in the last 2 sets? So probably not an amazing showing from him after that third set. What was your analysis of that? How do you see that?
No, I think he's turned the corner. I don't think it's a mental block. He's now venturing into uncharted waters. He sees an opening, especially you don't know what Djokovic is going to do. And you got to remember, when you're 6'6" and can serve 140 and hit the corners, and you move that well for 6'6", and your ground strokes are way above average, especially the backhand's one of the best down the lines in the game. His volleys are a little dicey, maybe not the best feel. The forehand's good. It's not, one of the best in the world. But listen, he's improving mentally. And I think when you believe, you know you can achieve. So I don't think it's a mental block. I think that he could have won that match. He won the tournament before that. So at the end of the day, I look for him to win multiple Grand Slams. He'll definitely grab a few, especially if someone gets injured and the door opens up a little more, like it did during that COVID tournament, back at US Open. A lot of people didn't play. So at the end of the day, I think he's knocking on the door. He could be one of the big three, but he's going to have to improve mentally even more. But I think this whole experience on clay, remember, he got hurt a while back and he was out for a long time and he's come right back. You've seen many people get an injury and it's like, see you later, alligator. They don't even come back. He's come all the way back and he's come back even better. So he's maturing, he's getting mentally stronger. I just think when you can serve like that, you have a shot against anybody. So am I going to anoint him as one of the big three? Not yet. I need to see a little bit more. And I want him to win matches just on the mental part, not just on the serve and the backhand.
Yeah, agreed. And it's good to see him ripping his forehand more and flattening out a bit over the fortnight. And
Yeah,
he did go a little bit steady first for part of the final, but generally speaking, I think there's been real big gains made on that forehand side. More just the confidence, I think, than anything. I think there's anything technical that's changed. So good to see him being more positive, I think, with his play. And he's got big weapons, so it's just about utilizing them, as you say. And talking of people who, haven't won a slam yet, but they're looking to, Tsitsipas as well. The Greek player, of course, has a really bad matchup on paper against Alcaraz.
yeah.
What do you think of him? Because he came out after and was talking about, Alcaraz is up here and, he's just almost putting him on a pedestal, saying he's too good and he's got a level that I need to aspire to. And it was very respectful and very much, he hits a fantastic level of quality of ball, and I think my ball's really good, but his is just so good, I can't match it. And maybe not a defeatist attitude, but not also didn't seem super upset, which I'm sure he was, in the post match press conference. But how did you see him in that match, and also just his thoughts afterwards? What did you think?
Now, he might have a mental block, okay, since you mentioned that about Zverev against Alcaraz. If you think about it, it shouldn't be that bad of a matchup, because he can run, he has a great forehand, so there's a little bit of mental stuff going on there. And once again, it's still very close. I think he'll always be a top 10 player. Could he win a slam? Sure. Depends on, how much other guys improve and more Alcaraz and Sinner about their health. You've already seen him battle injuries, especially Carlos. He plays a very violent game, the way he stops and starts like a Mercedes, he's hitting the brake. So you never know about the health. But I think a lot of times when players say things, whether they're respectful or not, you got to always take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes they'll really build them up, and they might not really mean it, You got to always understand that. And no, they're all competitive. They're all so competitive and they all think they're better. But when the match is over, they're just given respect. But I agree with you. I think you got to be careful talking like they're Buddha or they're on another planet, to build them up that much. You got to be careful because those little things, those little nuggets or gems stay with their opponent. And they could use that to their advantage when mentally they're in a situation, 5 sets and another slam. So you got to be careful. You want to respect people, but don't put them like they're on another planet, because it's much closer than the score, even though it was decisive. There's a lot of quality points and there's key moments in every point in every game. Like you said about Federer, I won 83% of my matches, but I lose 45% of the points against people I play. That's crazy stuff. People have to understand it's so close. But he's in there. There's no doubt he's in there. He'll always be a top 10 player. It's a little tougher, even though he has a great one-handed backhand. It is easier to jerk him around because he does play one hand, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. That's definitely been an issue, but it was intriguing because that didn't seem to be the issue against Alcaraz. This time it was, as you say, maybe just the few points, decisive points. He missed a few
Yeah, but
volleys
one
where
thing,
normally
if
he's
I
pretty good.
can, one thing that he did do, I was impressed. He did try to do things he didn't do against other people. I think he came to net maybe 38 times or something like that. He won like 28. So he was coming in a lot more, sneaking in because Alcaraz was standing in the parking lot returning serve, and he'd sneak in and drop volley. So he was out of his comfort zone to get in the end zone. So I respect that he was adding more tools to this toolbox and doing it on the biggest stage. And I'm telling you, that's going to serve him well against other players because he's getting that belief, not just do it in practice, but do it on the biggest stage. I look for those innate, subtle qualities that people do in these matches because when they do it on the biggest stage, they're going to bring it out on a regular basis. Anybody can do this when you're beating people or, you're supposed to win. But so I did see something in him that I never saw before. He was trying to do a few things tactically different by chipping short more, drop shotting more, and trying to sneak in a little bit more. Like I said, that's going to bode well against other customers.
Yeah, agreed. He's got great hands at the net as well. I think probably at a different level. I think of hands compared to Zverev as well. So he's definitely someone who I think is fantastic at the net when he is moving forward, and he's obviously an aggressive
Yeah.
player. But the drop shot has been a good addition. He's tried to play it at times in the past, but it's definitely improved, and that was great to see him have success against Alcaraz with it. Just a shame that I think in the decisive points he wasn't quite able to
Well, let me ask
put
you
it
a
over the line.
question. Don't you think you've watched enough tennis? Don't you think since Alcaraz came into the picture, don't you feel there's more drop shots on the ATP tour than ever before?
Yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
100%, and also because a lot of the guys coming through are younger, so I feel like they're braver. So they see Alcaraz do it, and they're like, well, if he can do it, why can't I do it? Whereas I feel like maybe in the past you had Federer, but the amount of younger talent coming through, and I'm not talking about obviously just Nadal and Djokovic, but there wasn't a big cohort of younger players coming through. They were looking at Federer just saying, okay, he plays that because he's just that good. I feel like you've got Sinner who isn't overawed by Alcaraz. Even Runa, is another player, and you've got all these other players like Korda and all these younger players. Shelton, they all seem quite fearless in that sense. So and they haven't got the scar tissue of the big three to think we have to hit them off the court. They know that okay, those guys are almost done. We can play in different ways. The drop shot is a great addition, and especially given how physical it is and people standing further back on serve, etc. as well. So it's a great tool to have. I love a drop shot as well, obviously only at club level, but I probably play it too much. Although I'm going to take your words of advice and say I can keep on playing as much as I want, so it's fine. But for sure, on the men's side, then Rick, what was your favorite match to watch? I'm assuming you watched quite a few. Was there a specific match that you thought, oh, that really did it for you?
Well, yeah, it was Alcaraz and Sinner. I mean, come on, that's must see TV. You know what I mean? Both of them know they can win. Both of them expect to win. There's a lot of common threads in their game. You know, no, that's like it's just great. I don't think people understand the quality of their consistency. Okay, when you're hitting the ball that hard, you know, 10, 15, 20 times, the quality of the angles, the quality, they're all trying to one up each other. It's a lot of chess out there in the movement. I mean, the way both of them cover the court, one of them's moving like a cheetah, the other's like an Olympic skier, it's crazy. And people, they're both so good at all that stuff, you don't appreciate the quality of the production that you're watching. And, just the way I coach and the way I look at things. I love greatness, and that's going to be must see TV the next 30 times they play for sure.
100%. And it wasn't maybe the classic that people wanted, and I think it was such a high profile match in their careers, and clearly both had some nerves. But I think the last couple of sets, especially, started to really hot up, and there were some fantastic points. And they're so athletic and versatile, and
Yeah.
Sinner is also adding to his game. Then it's great to see them really push each other, and you need those rivalries, right, for players to have, well, to continue improving the way that they should. So great to see. Is there anything on the men's side, Rick, you want to say before we move on to the women and talk about Iga and her
Yeah,
new
I love what
story?
Sinner said afterwards. He goes, "Sure, I'm disappointed, but this is part of the process of getting better. You know, it's over, it's over. And it's hard to do. I mean, some people go in a tailspin. Listen, you do your best, you give 100%, you got to let it go. There's only one person that wins each week. That's kind of brutal in itself. You know what I mean? But I love that attitude. And that's why Sinner's the number one player in the world. It's a game of inches from one ear to another. And that guy has the right mindset.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, on that, on Sinner becoming world number one, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think he's going to be there long? And I'm assuming you think it's this, it's going to be a battle, a tussle going forward between himself and Alcaraz, I mean, for that mantle. But I mean, how good has he been this year to earn that
Yeah.
title?
Well, no, he definitely earned it. Listen, I called 6 months ago. By summer of 2024, he'd be number one in the world, the chosen one, simply because two things. I kind of fudged it a little bit because of the points. He wasn't going to defend as much, and Djokovic had a lot to defend, points that were going to come and go. So I kind of saw that, and I saw how Sinner was trending. Okay. It's a numbers game. And bang, summer 2024, he becomes number one. But he deserves it. He earns it. He embraces it. There's a lot of stuff that can get in your head. No Italian, since what? I don't know, 60, whatever. There's been no Italian. There's a lot of stuff there. He's probably more popular than soccer and the Pope in Italy. Who knows with this guy, And he's just embraced it, and his head's on straight. And once again, like Carlos, a great role model. He's not going anywhere, barring injury. Double figure grand slams for sure. You can mail it in. He's so strong mentally, but he can move. He has slingshots on both sides. His serve's gotten better. And if you got those boxes checked, you don't beat yourself.
Yeah, 100%. He's
Yeah.
a great role model as well, and I think you mentioned that about Alcaraz earlier. And both these guys very respectful, but clearly have this edginess about them, this confidence to go and win and really push themselves to be the best. So I think they're a fantastic balance, both players, and
Yes.
it's great to see, and a testament to the sport. On the women's side, then, I mean, your pick, Iga Swiatek, after really the only hiccup being that second round match against Osaka, which we'll talk about in a second. But apart from that, she just was so dominant. Just rode her way to victory, and it's now 4 Roland Garros titles, and she hasn't lost a match since 2021 in Paris. So, I mean, it's been a phenomenal run. Only 2 losses as well at Roland Garros, and she's just so dominant on clay. Won Madrid, won Rome, now won Roland Garros. Can anyone beat her on clay, Rick? This is really the question.
Yeah, no, definitely people can beat her. There's no doubt about it. But people have to understand, how good she is on clay, because she has great wheels. She pops the popcorn, extra butter. Her little steps are amazing. Okay. But she opens up the court like the Red Sea, just brutal angles. She has angles like Hingis, but she's on steroids. The ball has more giddy up and it jumps, but she opens up the court, but the wild card is the mental part. She has, you know, she's bulletproof. People are gunning for her. She's number one. It's all about that. And she handles pressure so well. But that being said, people that have firepower, okay, Osaka obviously should have won the match. She got a little tight at the wrong time. Rybakina, Sabalenka, any Ospinko. These girls that have firepower and they're free and loose, they can beat her. Okay. But there's a lot of ifs there. You know what I'm saying? And even on clay, she has a little more time on clay with the grip, but her stroke is a little more compact than, say, Coco's. Coco's is a little bit more adventurous, where Iga has the Western grip, but a take back's different, the stroke is different. I know there's been people say they have the same grip. All they have is the same grip. The stroke is very different biomechanically. That's a whole nother podcast. But at the end of the day, the mental part. And I just knew once she got out of the Osaka match, when you make a Houdini escape, you've seen this many times. People just go on and win the tournament. When you're right near the edge of the cliff and someone pushes you off and they bring you back, you've seen lucky losers get in the tournament and win the tournament. It's like because you feel less pressure. But she's amazing, especially on the clay. She deserves so much respect, and she loves the competition. It all comes from within. It's all about her. She's not worried about the other person, or she wouldn't have won all those tournaments in a row and then won Roland Garros again. We're seeing history in real time. She's going to go down as one of the greatest clay court players. In my opinion, she's like Nadal on the men's side, and she's used him as a role model. She copied him. She kind of cloned him. You can see a lot of the same mannerisms. It's one thing to say to your kids or people you teach, watch greatness. It's another thing for them to buy in and then try to become that person like an actor or an actress. She's so much like Rafa in her mindset. Okay. And to me, that's the wild card, where you see some of the other girls, they kind of go in and out more than her. She's not going undefeated. She could have lost to Osaka. She's going to lose this year. Okay. But what she's done, people really need to appreciate it, because that's not easy, what she just pulled off.
Yeah, 100%. It's incredible, and she's almost like a clay machine right now. And the fact that she replicates or, well, idolizes Nadal as well, just adds a cherry on the top, given her form. But yeah, I mean, she's just so good on clay that it's hard to see who beats her. And as you say, there are players that can do it, and she saved a match point against Osaka, so she's not invincible on clay, but she just finds a way, it seems, and especially in the final as well, and playing against, albeit Jasmine Paolini, who'd never played a Grand Slam final, but she's just so professional against the players when she can see the
Like a
nerve she passed
machine.
on it.
She's like a
Just finishes.
machine. She's like
Yeah,
Rafa. It's
yeah.
the same thing. Now, if she wins Wimbledon, which she's not my pick, but that would be amazing. Now, because she's winning it on other qualities, and people know they can hurt her a little easier. But listen, never count out the heart of a champion. You never know.
Yeah, 100%. It would be reminiscent of when Rafa did in 2008, right?
Yeah.
When it won Roland Garros, Wimbledon, and the Olympics. So if she were to do something like that, it would be a phenomenal year. And yeah, like you, she's not my pick for Wimbledon. I think she just struggles a little bit with not just a struggle, but her movement isn't quite as good on clay. She hasn't got to grips with it as much as, say, on a hardcore clay court. And her forehand can sometimes, I think, she can get rushed a little bit on the forehand side, which I'm not as technical as you, but it does look like it gets broken down a little bit easier on grass with the lower bounce as well. But look, I mean, who
And you
knows?
know what? Another thing, and she knows that. And so she might try to be more aggressive. And the movement's different. And she doesn't get as much value maybe on some things. So it cuts both ways. People know they can get into you a little bit, and you might feel you got to do a little bit more. So even where Clay, she can live another day, when she goes wide on the backhand and flips one of those angles. You do that on grass, they can take it up the line maybe a lot easier. So it cuts both ways for the men and the women. And that's why people on grass, definitely are not afraid to play her.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Uh, Rick, for the French Open, there was a fantastic match, of course. Naomi Osaka was finally back to what looked like her best on a surface which is her worst surface against Iga. And I mean, a phenomenal match. It was great. It's great to have her back and playing that level of tennis, and great to have a match of that magnitude only in the second round. But what were your thoughts on the match and also Osaka and her level?
Yeah, first off, I got to see a little bit of that. So she was having a blast. She was having fun. She was free. I think she had 50 some winners. That's crazy on red clay, especially against Iga, who has a great motor. But what I love, I said a year ago when she was coming back, I said she can be top 10 by the end of 2024, and she's already shown snippets that she can be there. Osaka, you have grand slams in your back pocket, you have firepower, you have a great serve, you're authoritative off both sides. You can come back and play through the field. But what I love about the match against Iga, she should have won the first set and she didn't. And everybody thought it was over and she was going to check out at Publix and just go the other way. And Iga, would win easily. The fact that she hung in there shows me the competitiveness is there. And she's just so locked in. It wouldn't surprise me for her to win a couple of these warm up tournaments, believe it or not, before Wimbledon. Okay, I could see her doing that on grass because she has confidence now. And she already had that because she had the Grand Slams in her pocket. But listen, when you have a child and you take a year off and come back, it takes time. But she knows right now, okay, with not a whole lot of repetitions in tournaments, she should have beat the number one player in the world on her worst surface. Something's brewing good between years with Osaka, and hey, don't count her out. But it was a great match, and she said that was the most, in the press conference, that was the most fun I've ever had playing a tennis match. So what she was saying is, I felt no pressure, even though she lost. She should have won. She got a little tight at the end. She had so much fun, and as I said earlier, confidence is a fleeting thing. She was so adventurous and taking so many risks, and she was producing quality angle off a quality angle. She was fearless. It was one of the best matches of the year for sure.
100%. It's fantastic to see, and especially I think given she's never been a player to win clay court titles. That's just never
Yeah.
really been her game. She's won 4 slams and all on hard courts, and the fact that she gave it a really good go on clay is fantastic, and I think bodes well for the future. And now on grass as well, she's playing the warm up tournament. She's really going for it. She's clearly enjoying her tennis, and that's the biggest thing. And we talked before, and you said to me, "Look, the most important thing is that they're happy and that they're happy on court and they're enjoying it." And I feel like she's at that point, so I'm hoping that continues and long may it continue, because I think she's a great addition to the women's tour to add to your Swiatek's and your Rabakinas and your Sabalenkas and your Goff. And women's tennis seems like it's in a great place right now. So
Yeah. Well, she has the pedigree. You got to remember, she has those grand slams in her back pocket. That is gold on gold. You got to remember, Ash Barty checked out, Serena checked out. A lot of people kind of exited, that had that pedigree, that had those slams, and there was a vacuum there. And Iga says, "I'll take this," and Osaka was gone. So you're not playing these people in the quarters or the round of 16, and to have her back in the mix because I know she's going to be there, it's huge. Because listen, it's one thing to be one of the best players in the world. It's another thing to win multiple Grand Slams.
for sure. And we talked about matchups earlier, and one that seems to be not particularly good for Coco Gauff is that Swiatek matchup, right?
Yeah.
11-1 now is the head-to-head. I wanted to ask you as a coach, Rick, if you were in that team, right? If Brad Gilbert's going to be the one making the decision, but from your perspective, what would a coach normally do? Because in the off season, I was talking to someone else about this. Do you say, okay, you just work on generally what you need to work on to improve your game and focus on yourself? Or do you say, hold on, you're beating pretty much everyone else, so you've got a really good chance of beating everyone else, but against Iga, you're really struggling on XYZ. Do you tweak certain aspects to for one player, albeit a very good player who you keep on facing and you face 11 times over only a few years? What would you do? What's the approach that you take?
First off, great question. You know, I wouldn't do anything to beat Iga. Okay, that wouldn't be my focus. My focus with Coco, and obviously I know her father, little brothers in our camp every day. Great athlete, one of the best middle school quarterbacks in the United States. Kid's an amazing athlete. Okay, he's a real athlete in that family. He's unbelievable. Okay, great little tennis player, but he plays every sport. But regarding Coco, it wouldn't be about Iga. I think it's a tough matchup right now, unless Iga gets tight. If Iga gets tight, Coco can beat her. But the way it is now, I just think it's a tough matchup. But for me, what I would do if I was Coco, I think biomechanically, the forehand should be modified big time in the off season, you know, and you can't do it during season, but that's in the eye of the beholder. You got to have a biomechanist. My partner, Dr. Brian Gordon, would help me with this, and I would try to reverse engineer this whole thing, change the take back, the elbow position, and put in the hard yards of showing her the ATP forehand. I just think when she's confident and she moves forward, like you saw at the end of summer and then into US Open, her forehand, there was still some hiccups, but it's more authoritative when you believe. I just feel the way her forehand is, uh, she gives too many like uh, free points or short balls, you know? And so I just think that area technically needs to be changed if the player wants to, okay? Because it's magically not going to get better, okay? It will get better from confidence. It will get better if you have more time, depending on who you're playing. It will get better because of the surface. But if there's that many unforced errors or short balls, you look where it lands. So when she has time, it's a weapon because it's a heavy ball. There's a lot of giddy up on it, but there's a little speed bump there, and it always bubbles up under pressure. So that would be number one I change. And then the serve. She has very long arms. She has one of the best slice serves on the tour, but I haven't looked at the serve in detail. There's a little bit of an issue on the second serve, and I think people are chiming in. Everybody has an opinion, but that doesn't mean it's the right opinion. Once again, it has to be addressed from a biomechanical point of view. It's not just keep your head up or keep your left arm up longer. Oh, you're collapsing. You know what someone might say on television. That's too vanilla. There, you can't double fault, 50 times in 4 matches. And she was still winning. That shows you how good Coco is mentally, how strong she is, what a great competitor, how good her backhand is, and how even on a bad day, she can run and scrap and fight. She's the quickest player out there. So she checks all these other boxes. And so I think if those two things were modified from a science point of view, no question, she could be number one and she'd be a rough customer for anybody. But I wouldn't change my game just for Iga because there's a lot of other players out there, around her or ahead of her. And there's a lot more coming through the back door.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. Thanks for that insight, Rick. It's something that as a coach, you have that ability to be able to tell me, how would you approach it? And I guess Brad Gilbert it'll be interesting to see what he does do with her in the off season, which is coming up. And of course, she still has to defend her US Open crown, and I'm sure, give Wimbledon a good go as well. She's not got a bad game on grass as well. She conquered, of course, Ons Jabeur, who's constantly looking for her first Grand Slam title, made 3 finals. I wanted to get your view on her, Rick, and just her level, and she's got a very I would say an exciting game. But is it, in your opinion, as a coach, is it a style and also her game? Is it a Grand Slam winning style in her? Do you think she will win a Slam eventually?
Listen, she's very talented. When she's confident, she can make you uncomfortable when she's confident. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, no, to me, it's all about the mental part with her. She's a good athlete. She can mix it up. She has a lot of creativity. But listen, when you're not confident, you try low percentage shots or, you beat yourself a lot. But it seems like she's getting a little more back on track. I don't know her situation that well. Like I know Coco's, very well. So, but she's definitely always going to be a top 10 player. And I don't know what she does to try to go to another level. You know what I'm saying? But once she was confident, when I saw before, she could beat anybody in the world. It's so much confident with these gals at the top. It's a fine line. You take it a little earlier, you take a few more chances. You're not hitting off the back foot. That's the difference. Because they're also very close, except Iga's a cut above mentally. But no, she's not going anywhere. But it depends also their commitment to want to add things and then improve on exactly what they got going on now.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But before we wrap it up, Rick, I just wanted to ask you for the women's side. I mean, who are your picks for Wimbledon? Who early picks, I guess, as there's still a little bit of time, although it's a quick turnaround. Who are you fancying for Wimbledon to take the title?
On the women, I'm going to take Sabalenka. Okay. I think she'll be hungry. She has firepower. Okay. She's my pick for the women. And for the men, I haven't really had time to even think about it. But, I'm actually going to go, if he can make the same adaptations and modifications he did last year. Remember, he almost lost to a lucky loser first round at the warm-up tournament. And I'm watching Alcaraz play, and he's standing back there he's still on clay. And then each match, he got close to the baseline. He almost turned into Agassi, taking the ball on the rise, giving you a surprise, tearing out your eyes. He changed his whole game. And then once his confidence got going. So I'm going with Alcaraz to go for the daily double. All right. And Sabalenka on the women's side.
Wow, that'd be incredible if he does do that. And if he's fit, I'm sure he'll be raring to go to defend his crown. And Sabalenka, I think that's my pick. On the men, I'm not sure yet. But on the women's, I think, it's a long time coming. I think first she obviously missed a year as well because she wasn't able to play because they didn't let her play. But Rebecca obviously has won it, and they're kind of similar type of players. And
yeah,
I think Sabalenka's got the serve. She's super consistent now at the slams. She's won 2 Grand Slams now going into Wimbledon this year, and I think she'll be super hungry, and she's got such a big game that it's difficult to see her not win a Wimbledon sooner rather than later. So let's see if she's able to do so.
And like I said, don't be surprised if Osaka doesn't win one of these warm-up tournaments. She's my wild card. She's trending in the right direction. And now she believes even more so. So she's going to be dangerous.
100%. I'm really looking forward to seeing her as well. Hopefully she doesn't get a horrific draw and she's able to play herself into Formula.
Yeah, that's the problem when you're not like seated near the top. You could get someone bang right off the bat.
Exactly. Well, Rick, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it. I don't want to take up loads of your time like we did last time. That was a very chunky chat. But yeah, much appreciated. Have a good rest of the day. And guys, if you haven't done so already, go and check out Rick on YouTube. And also he's very active on X as well. And I think you might be on TikTok actually. I saw you on TikTok. But yeah, YouTube and X especially. And Rick, I still owe you a video myself, so I'll send it over and you can break it down and give me 100 points as to why it needs to be improved. I'm sure.
And anybody can really check me out if they come to Boca Raton. I'm on court 1 7 days a week, changing strokes, but more importantly, changing lives.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rick. Guys, remember to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and appreciate each and every one.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it. Thanks, Rick.
All right. Have a good